will do incredible things in our lives if we do. But I do believe that there is a New Testament passage that I think that speaks very well to this, and it's in 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6 and 7. It says, "Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." Remember this, Paul says. If you want to sow sparingly, if you want to reap sparingly, sow sparingly. You want to reap generously, sow generously. If you want to see abundant blessings in your life, then give to God in generous ways. And that is exactly what you will reap. Malachi says, test him on this. The New Testament promises this, is that if we will do this, if we will give back to God, then He's going to do incredible things back for us. Now, I know a lot of people have this question. Okay, if I'm supposed to do that, to give 10%, do I have to give all of that to the church? And then again, there's that question, have to. We need to stop asking these have to questions. I know that there are a lot of great things out there that we can give our money to, some great Christian ministries, some other things. My question isn't so much, is that okay, but have we ever really asked God what it is He wants us to do? Have we sat down with God and said, God, what do you want me to do with my finances? Because really, I think sometimes we're just trying to slip in under. We're just trying to I do this, and this. You put all this together, that's okay, right? That's kind of what we do. And I get that because, there's some things that I give to that I think are real important. I mean, there's these kids that I sponsor. And I know a lot of people do that, where you give money each month, and if, and because of you, they can have food, they can have clothes, and they'll be able to go to a great school. And I've got a picture of the kids that I sponsor I'd like to show you. Yeah, those are my kids. This is not a question of what all can I get away with? What all counts as far as what God's concerned? And can I slip in and get it just right? The question for us is, am I doing with my finances what God has called me to? God has said He wants a significant portion of what I have to give it back to Him, so that if I sow generously, I will get back from Him. I believe that we need to give a large portion of that to the place where we serve and are served here in church. But there are some other great ministries that need money as well. And I think if we all decided that we were going to right now step up and do that, I think every ministry we could possibly imagine would be trying to figure out what to do with all the money. But the question isn't really, what do I think? Any more than the question is, what do you think? The question for you is, are you going to sit down with God and say, God, here are my finances. I want to honor you with my finances. God, you tell me how you want to direct my giving. That's the question. Because I believe in that moment when we can sit down and be honest with God and say, God, I'm going to take this portion and I'm going to give it to you, that a very powerful spiritual thing can happen. Where this money that just so overwhelms us and beats us down, we are saying, even in that, God, I give you what's first. There's a freedom that comes with that. There's a liberation that comes from saying, I'm giving this to God. But if what we were talking about earlier is true, if we are overwhelmed with debt and we don't have any savings and we're spending more than we bring in, I'm not sitting around with 10% discretionary income in my budget. None of us are. None of us are saying, well, I make this much and I've kind of got these hundreds and thousands of dollars that I don't know what to do with. No one's doing that. I'm not even going to pretend that there is. No joke there. There's nobody doing that. So what do we do? And I think what this does is we do this one step at a time. If you're someone who's not giving at all, I would encourage you the next time you're here, pull out your wallet and put something in. See what God does. If you're the kind of person who kind of gives sporadically, you kind of pull out your wallet, if there's something in there, you kind of put it in there, I'd challenge you to take the next step and say, every time I'm here, I'm going to give something. If that's you, take the next step. I'm going to start giving whether I'm here or not every week. If you're doing that, I say, hey, I'm going to move from just kind of giving this little bit to something that I consider sacrificial. And if you're in that place, I'd encourage you to get to that place of 10% and test God and see what He does. Don't feel overwhelmed with this guilt that you've got to do everything tomorrow to where you're just tripling your credit card debt in the next month. But take these small steps with God and see what He does. You didn't get in the situation you were in 3 days, and you're not going to get out of it in 3 days. But if you will take small steps of obedience with God, you'll see a change in your financial picture. But really, if we're going to be honest, our big picture problem is not that we don't manage our money well. It's not that we're in debt. It's not that we don't save. It's not that we don't give. Really, our problem is a lordship problem. Our problem is who is in charge of my life and my finances? Is it me or God? And am I willing to give control of that to God? And for many of us, we're not. And the reason is number 3, we just love money too much. It's true. We just love money too much. I love it. I like to spend it. I like to get it. I like the stuff I get with it. And I'm not interested in what God has to say about it. Not what I want. I'm in charge. And there's a verse that is in the Bible that a lot of people quote all the time that I'd like for us to look at. It's that money is the root of all evil. There it is. Money is the root of all evil. You've heard this verse before. You've probably read it in the Bible, right? I really should figure out some way to take a poll on this, because the truth is that verse is not in the Bible. If you've quoted it, look to your neighbor and apologize to him right now. That is not in the Bible. Also not in the Bible, God helps those who help themselves. Okay? Actually, what that verse says is this. It says the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It's not all evil, and it's not money. It's the love of money. But what we like to do is we like to say it's money is the problem, because that way then I'm off the hook. It's not me, it's the money. It's not my love of money. It's a little bit like that, the little Geico money with the eyeballs. Like we think we personify money. Oh, it's that money is going to get me. Not the money. It's you. And your love of money, your passionate pursuit of money that is getting you into trouble. And that verse we looked at is in 1 Timothy 6. I'd like to show you the whole passage. That's verse 10. I want to start with verse 6. It says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." You know, me and my neurosis that I've been sharing with you, I've been worried about that I'm going to say something that somebody's going to think is too harsh. Then I read this verse and I felt better, because there's nothing I can say that can be harder than this. Verse 9, "People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." This is what happens to us. When we focus and obsess on money, it takes us to all kinds of bad places. The more we pursue it, the more we make it our goal, the more that we make this our focus, the more and more trouble that we can find ourselves in, the more pain that we cause ourselves. Jesus says something very similar in Matthew chapter 6, starting with verse 19. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.